Big thanks to Muhammad Isa for becoming part of our small family. Alright, time for the recap. As the girl groaned in pain, she struggled to understand what had just happened. She questioned the situation in disbelief, insisting that her bewitching spell had been working on him at first. She was certain of it, as she had felt the enchantment take hold in the beginning. Yet somehow, he had managed to break free from it. Unable to accept this outcome, she demanded to know how he had escaped her bewitchment. In her mind, there had to be something interfering, something that had lifted her control over him. As her gaze shifted toward his weapon, her expression hardened. She gritted her teeth and declared that it had to be the sword. According to her, the spirit energy emanating from that blade had blocked her bewitchment magic. The realization seemed to anger her further, as it meant her technique had not failed on its own but had instead been countered. Raon, upon hearing her words, acknowledged internally that her assumption was correct. If the true soul sword had not intervened and disrupted the enchantment, he would have been the one caught off guard, likely collapsing under her influence. The thought made him more cautious, as he recognized how dangerous her abilities truly were. He recalled the tragic fate of Shuren village, which had been massacred by the White Blood cult. The lingering resentment of its fallen citizens had been absorbed into the true soul sword, forming a powerful will that opposed the cult's methods. That very grudge now seemed to interfere with her sorcery, preventing it from taking full effect. It was not merely a weapon but a vessel carrying the emotions of those who had suffered. Raon then spoke aloud, pointing out that when she had attacked earlier, her blood energy had been mixed with white blood. From that alone, he concluded that she was undoubtedly a member of the White Blood cult. He remarked that it was unfortunate for her, as she had already realized that the sword in his possession held the power to counter her abilities. The girl, however, showed no intention of backing down. She warned him coldly, stating that she did not know where he had obtained such a weapon, but she questioned whether he truly believed he had already won. As she spoke, her power began to surge once more. Blood gathered around her arm, forming a thick aura before her severed limb began to regenerate itself at an alarming speed. Raon observed this carefully and remarked that such an ability, regenerating using blood energy, indicated that she must hold the rank of at least an archbishop within the cult. Hearing this, the girl smirked slightly and acknowledged that he was more knowledgeable than she had expected, yet she also found it strange that despite recognizing her rank, he still appeared so calm and at ease in front of her. Without warning, she lunged forward, her movements swift and aggressive. She shouted that she would pierce his throat without hesitation. A sudden clash erupted as the two engaged in close combat. As the battle continued, Raon observed the situation carefully and concluded that, since her sorcery was no longer effective, she had shifted her focus to close combat. In terms of raw physical ability, she appeared slightly inferior compared to her magical prowess. Yet she was still an archbishop. That alone meant her strength could not be underestimated. Her movements were direct and forceful, lacking refinement but carrying undeniable power. As she launched a series of relentless attacks, Raon met each strike with calm precision. He deflected her blows one after another, maintaining a steady rhythm while keeping his footing stable. Despite the intensity of her assault, he showed no signs of being pressured. This only served to irritate her further. The girl grew visibly annoyed, her frustration boiling over as she called him a coward. She demanded to know how long he intended to keep dodging her attacks. She questioned where the overwhelming power he had displayed earlier had gone, accusing him of holding back and prolonging the fight unnecessarily. Raon responded without emotion, stating that if she found his approach unsatisfactory, he would stop retreating. In the next instant, his stance shifted. Before she could react, he closed the distance between them in a single step. His speed caught her completely off guard. Appearing directly in front of her, he struck with decisive force, sending her staggering backward. The impact disrupted her balance, and she let out a pained groan as she struggled to recover. Through clenched teeth, she cursed him, calling him a bastard. However, her anger quickly gave way to shock when she saw what followed. Raon had already raised his sword, his expression unchanged as he prepared his next move. He spoke coldly, stating that he had grown tired of her techniques. Without hesitation, he brought his blade down, severing her arm with a clean and brutal strike. Blood splattered as she was forced back, unable to withstand the sudden surge in his offense. The pain caused her to spit out blood as her body trembled under the impact. Raon stepped back slightly, maintaining his composure as he watched her struggle. He remarked that he had momentarily forgotten that the White Blood cult was behind these incidents. His tone carried a hint of disdain, as though the realization only reinforced his judgment of them. He continued, stating that only those from the white blood cult would abduct people without any regard for age or circumstance. To him, their actions were nothing more than the work of merciless individuals. He further concluded that their attack on him had been based on the assumption that extracting blood from him would be an easy task. However, he corrected himself almost immediately, stating that such an outcome would never occur. The girl scoffed at his words, refusing to accept defeat. Despite her injuries, she attempted to gather her blood energy once more. Her determination remained unshaken as she declared that she would kill him, her voice filled with both rage and desperation. Just as the tension reached its peak, something unexpected occurred. A strange distortion formed nearby, resembling a portal. The sudden appearance of this phenomenon caused her expression to shift from anger to confusion. She turned toward it and shouted angrily, calling out a name, Dorigo. She demanded to know what he was doing, clearly unwilling to leave the fight unfinished. She insisted that she was not ready to withdraw and ordered him to release her. However, the pull of the portal grew stronger, making it impossible for her to resist. Realizing that she could not escape its influence, she turned back toward Raon one last time. She introduced herself, declaring her name to be Celine. Her voice carried both fury and determination as she swore that she would kill him. She promised that she would take his life with her own hands the next time they met. With that final declaration, she was pulled into the portal and disappeared, leaving behind only silence and the lingering traces of battle. Moments later, a presence emerged from behind. Limer appeared as though stepping out of thin air, his expression calm as he assessed the situation. He asked whether the enemy had managed to escape. Raon replied that she had indeed fled, explaining that she must have sensed his presence and chosen to retreat. Limer responded with a faint smile, commenting that Raon had quite a way with words. He added that even if he had not arrived, the result would not have changed. His confidence suggested that the outcome of the battle had already been decided long before his appearance. He then reflected on the energy Celine had displayed earlier. According to him, her strength had been above average even for an archbishop. However, he acknowledged that Raon had grown significantly stronger as well. Since the time he had gone to forge that sword, his abilities had clearly advanced to another level. Their conversation was interrupted as Dorian arrived, calling out to the young master with visible concern. He quickly asked whether Raon had sustained any injuries during the fight. His tone suggested urgency. As he carefully examined him for any signs of harm, Raon reassured him calmly, stating that he was fine and that there was nothing serious to worry about. His composure helped ease Dorian's concern. Turning his attention back to Limer, Raon mentioned that they had suspected the white blood cult to be responsible for the recent missing persons incidents. Limer nodded in agreement, stating that the interaction had made it clear there was no longer any doubt about who was behind the disappearances. The truth had finally come to light, and with it came the realization that the situation was far more dangerous than they had initially anticipated. As Limer remarked that if they had managed to capture her earlier, they might have been able to uncover the location of the white blood cult's headquarters, Raon responded thoughtfully, explaining that such an outcome would not have been easy to achieve. He stated that interrogating members of the cult was notoriously ineffective, as they were trained to resist and endure without revealing any meaningful information. Their fanatic devotion made them extremely difficult to break, rendering most interrogation attempts useless. Limer acknowledged this point, adding that it was precisely because of this reason that the location of their headquarters had remained hidden for so long. Despite numerous encounters and investigations, no one had been able to extract the necessary details. Raon agreed, noting that while they still did not know where the main headquarters was located, there was a strong possibility that they could soon uncover the branch of the white blood cult operating within Porban. His words carried a quiet confidence, suggesting that he had already begun forming a strategy. The scene then shifted toward the inn, where the members of the Raging Wind Corps had gathered. Once everyone was present, Raon stepped forward and announced that he would brief them on the current situation. He began by stating that some of them might have already heard fragments of information, but he would clarify everything. He confirmed that the ones responsible for the recent abductions were indeed the white blood cult. The revelation caused a ripple of tension among the group, though many had already suspected as much. Raon continued, explaining that the archbishop he had encountered earlier had managed to escape. However, she had sustained serious injuries during their battle, which meant she could not have traveled very far. Because of this, he declared that their next course of action would be to track her down and use her movements to locate their base of operations. As he finished speaking, murmurs spread among the soldiers. Some expressed concern about the speed and coordination of the white blood cult, noting that they rarely operated alone. Others speculated that additional members must have been nearby, suggesting that the presence of an archbishop indicated a much larger force at work. The unease in the room grew as the implications of the situation became clearer. While observing the group, Raon's attention was suddenly drawn to Martha. Her expression stood out sharply against the others. He paused for a moment, taken aback by the intensity he saw in her eyes. Wrath, noticing his reaction, leaned closer and quietly asked what was wrong with her, referring her as Beef Girl. Raon, however, recognized something deeper. To him, what he saw was not simple anger or frustration, it was hatred. The emotion was raw and overwhelming, far beyond what the situation alone could justify. He began to connect this to her behavior in the past, recalling how strongly she had been driven by a desire for power. It led him to suspect that she might have a personal history tied to the white blood cult, something that fueled her current state. At that moment, Morel stepped forward, speaking with a serious expression. He stated that he did not wish to disrupt the momentum of their efforts, but he believed it was necessary to address a critical point. According to him, the white blood cult was known as the most dangerous among the 5 demons. Even when their identities were exposed to powerful factions like Zieghardt and Bacher, they did not retreat or hesitate. Instead, they continued to act boldly, as though they had nothing to fear. His words added another layer of tension to the room. The idea that such an organization would continue operating so openly, even after being discovered, was deeply unsettling. Raon prepared to respond, intending to address Morel's concerns and provide further direction. However, before he could speak, the door suddenly burst open. A man rushed inside in a state of panic, his breathing uneven as he struggled to deliver his message. He announced that there was an urgent problem. Princess Jane, who had been recovering at the clinic, had disappeared. The room fell into chaos instantly. The magicians reacted with shock and disbelief, insisting that such a thing should have been impossible. They began questioning how it could have happened, especially considering the protective measures that had been in place. As the situation escalated, several of them attempted to calm Morel, who had become visibly agitated. However, their efforts proved ineffective. He shouted angrily, demanding to know how they expected him to remain calm under such circumstances. His voice carried both frustration and fear as he pointed out the severity of the situation. He warned that if they failed to find the princess, the consequences would not be limited to their group alone. The repercussions could extend to Zieghardt as well, potentially leading to serious political conflict. His concern was not unfounded, as the disappearance of a royal figure could easily escalate into a major crisis. Amid the rising panic, Raon remained composed. He raised his voice just enough to cut through the noise, stating firmly that there was no need to panic. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaos around him, gradually drawing everyone's attention back to him. He then revealed something unexpected. He stated that he already knew where the princess was and also knew the direction in which the archbishop had fled. His words stunned everyone present, silencing the room almost instantly. Friends, this chapter comes to an end. To everyone watching, thank you for joining us on this adventure. If you're excited to see what happens next, let me know in the comments, ask for more chapters, and I'll keep them coming. If you'd like to support the channel and be part of our family, consider joining as a member. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help grow this community. Until next time, stay tuned.